Hello, I'm Jeanette Fisher Kouadio. I came to BayView as a wee tot. I was born in Southern California, came here when I was about 3 years old. From living in Southern California, everything was kind of flat. So when I came to San Francisco, to BayView, what I really noticed was the houses and lots of stairs and the hardwood floors and the different fixtures. I think I fell in love with architecture when I came to San Francisco, not knowing it, and certainly in BayView. So I went to preschool in Hunters Point, a place called Northridge Children's Center, I believe. And it is probably now where LaSalle Heights is. And went there, as I look back now and I look at early education for my grandson, I see that we had some really excellent educators in the BayView. And I continued. I attended elementary here. I went to Burnett Elementary when it was called that. That's the adjacent school. The name has since been changed. I went to their child care center. I was bused. That was part of the busing program. Went to Kate Kennedy Elementary. I think now it's a center at 30th and Noe. I remember writing letters to, I remember a congressman or a politician, his name was Mr. Hamburger. So we were all writing letters in our, I don't know if it was a kindergarten or first grade class, asking him to not close the school at that time. So from Kate Kennedy, then I went to Burnett Elementary. I was in the gifted program there, part of the 5th and 6th grade. From there, I went to Aptis Middle School, where I attended their gifted program as well. I had a period where I went back to Southern California, and I was trying to escape those gifted classes because I thought, you know, I'm separated. I'm in the midst of everyone, but yet I'm separated. And I didn't really understand the program or the difference because that's what I'd always done. And so BayView for me, I don't know it as this place that I'm always in awe of the perception that people have about the BayView because that's not what I grew up knowing. I grew up on Shafter Avenue. That's where my grandparents, James and Thelma Briscoe, lived. They came here from Texas. And on that street, all the families, there's the Wolf family, the Franklin family, the Witherspoons, the Hollis family. They lived on that block for all my life, before my life, and it's only recently, my grandmother passed in 2015, and some families still live there. So it was a great sense of community. And in that neighborhood, we were expected to go out. My grandfather was very social. He had all granddaughters, but we got all the boy treatment, so we went fishing under the bridge, and we went to Candlestick. We did everything that he would have done. He was just delighted with his grandchildren, so we got to spend time with him. He made sure he introduced us to all the neighbors on the street. So we take it upon ourselves, my cousin and I, when he was maybe washing his car. He loved jazz, and his car had to be fast and clean. And he dressed really nice, and he liked air conditioning and had those pine, the air freshener that's shaped like a pine tree. Lots of those would hang. And so we'd go and we'd say hello to Mr. Joe down the street, and we'd make our rounds and just say hello to all the neighbors. And I didn't realize that when I was growing up. It took me coming back to San Francisco and seeing an exhibit at the Linda Brooks Burton Library. I spent so much time at that library when it was Anna E. Whedon. And that was my after-school point. And I, interacted with Linda Brooks Burton up until, the remodel of the library. She hosted at the library a series of workshops that I did on probate, trust, and estate planning, just trying to educate people about the benefits of having an estate plan so that, they can maintain their homes and pass them on to the next generation with instructions. So I'm skipping. So let's go back to Aptus, or let's see, Burnett. What I remember, let me give you childhood memories from the area. So I moved with my aunt and my younger cousin to the Jackie Robinson apartments when they were just built, and on Ruel Court. And I remember roller skates, you know, the metal ones, and with wheels. And our territory were all those hills. So we'd skate, we'd watch roller derby, and we didn't know how to stop. So there would be a car somewhere, so you had to learn different moves. So the folks that use skateboards and skates are much more advanced than we were. But I remember skating and just playing, and just kids just creating go-karts and making things. We just went outside and had fun until, you know, the street lights came on, or it was getting before the street lights came on. We'd have to go back inside and prepare, you know, for dinner and the next day. So I realize that's owed to my age. I wasn't aware of probably a lot of the things that some of my colleagues have spoken about happening at the time. So that's in Hunters Point. I did see some things that were a little curious to me as a kid, and this is age 4 through 9. So I'd see, it's like, why is that cat hanging from the monkey bars? And you know, what happened? Somehow, you know, it was just the things that kids might do, or I don't know how you think about doing them, but you know, there were some things that I thought, oh, I don't have a point of reference for that other than, you know, right here. And I remember sneaking to the candy house. So we lived on Ruel Court. There was Cashmere Court. We'd go over and play with friends there. But the candy house was deep behind a lot of the buildings. And so we found the way to get there because I loved candy. Won't eat it now, but I would, my cousin and I, we'd make it to the candy house and get all the wonderful, delicious things that we could. And I just noticed that the kid, you know, the playgrounds were not in good repair, and maybe the swing was, you know, turned over, and it just, I could see that it changed, that the whole atmosphere changed from the newer development to the older housing that was there. So I did read, that was a remarkable point for me. I remember that steep hill going up to Northridge Child Care Center, or Northridge, yeah, that was a preschool. It was so steep. And I remember the music that was happening at the time. Cisco Kid, I remember that playing. And just the educators were excellent. That's where I learned that I couldn't get away with certain things. So I remember a little boy, his name was John. We had to write our alphabet, numbers, and so what John scribbled on his sheet. And I was really meticulous. It's like, if that's how it's supposed to be written, then I wanted mine to look just like that. So I said, okay, well, let's try scribbling. I had to sit in my cubby. So I got a lesson very young in life that, you know, some things you just cannot get away with. So you just don't even need to try it. And I owe that to preschool in BayView. So it saved me from a lot of mistakes. What else can I tell you? I remember coming from Hunters Point, coming down to 3rd Street. What I remember is there was an ice cream parlor. And we'd walk down, and they had a wonderful flavor. It was bubblegum ice cream, and I thought that was the best thing, best creation. You mean I get to have ice cream, and then I get bubblegum after that? That's just too good. And so we'd make that trek. There was an ice cream parlor where right on 3rd and Palouse is a check cashing place. I remember Double Rock Baptist Church, where my grandfather was a deacon, and we, of course, went on all the holidays when we would come and visit. When I came to live with my grandparents later at 11, you know, that was, you know, church, you had to go. You had to go to some service. Should be Sunday school or the regular service. And a lot of the other kids on the block whose parents were, this is on Shafter Avenue, requiring the same thing of them, they too opted for Sunday school. So we'd meet and we'd walk, and the church was about 2 blocks away. So we'd go to Sunday school there and had a church community. And I remember that I started to, church, sometimes you're in church as a kid, you hear things and it's just a lot of other things going on. You're having your own social interactions with the other kids in the church. But I remember at that church, that's the church where I started to hear the word, or I started to, it's like, oh, that message makes sense, that resonates with me. And so that's where I really started paying attention. And I owe a lot of, I'll say, my social mores from Double Rock Baptist Church, where Reverend Victor L. Medeiros was the pastor there. I think he was the oldest and longest pastor at the time. He's since passed away. He baptized me. He baptized my son, my daughter, and I have a good friend, Carol Magruder. She grew up on Thomas and Keith. I grew up on Shafter and Keith, and you'll never guess where we met. Bordeaux, France. We were both exchange students, and people tease me that I'm slow, and I am, because I break things and make, drop things, cause accidents, so I try to be very deliberate and careful. And so she will say that I was in a class before hers came in. I'd taken a little longer on my test, and she asked questions. She's like, well, what program are you here with? I was with the UC Education Abroad program, and she was there on her own. And I told her, and she said, well, where are you from? San Francisco. Well, I'm from San Francisco. Okay, where in San Francisco? BayView. Well, I live in BayView. On what street? I live on this street. Well, I live on this street. So we're literally the short side of the block away from one another. So that was back in 91. Was that 91? Yeah, that school year that we met and have been great friends ever since. Our children grown up here. But I digress. So let me get you back. Am I just telling you about me and my walk in this place? Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, as a gifted child, raised by grandparents, what were the greatest challenges for you growing up in Huntington?
Okay. Well, I'm going to just add a little more detail to that. So as a gifted, I was raised by a lot of people. So when I came here, my mom and we came here. I know that I can tell you this now because I've done some research, but we came here after the 1971 earthquake in Southern California. So I had family there, and the day prior to that earthquake, my grandmother, I'll say my other grandmother, that raised my mom, she passed away. And then there was the earthquake the next day. So for me, in my mind, when I look back, all those things happened, and then all of a sudden our family was pulled apart. So the earthquake just shook everything up and out. So now my grandmother, I had a cousin, or I called them my older brother and sister, and they were foster children, I found out. So that when my grandmother passed, well, then people came to take them away. And then my grandfather went away, the house was gone, and then everyone split up, came here. And I would say, so when I initially came, we went to the Tenderloin. So my mother, bless her heart and rest her soul, Queen Gingin, as she was named by the king of the Tikar people in Cameroon in 2016, after they completed her funeral rites. She struggled with a substance abuse problem for all of my life. So we initially started in the Tenderloin, and then when we'd come to my grandparents' house, at some point they didn't let her take me away with her because they could see that she was really not in a condition to keep me. I didn't know. I wanted to go. So I stayed. So initially I lived with my aunt, Georgia, bless her heart and rest her soul. I feel like I've come back to BayView to live continuously since 2003. I left Cote d'Ivoire where they were having some political problems. That was going to be my home. That's where Kouadio comes from. But I came back and I'll get back to my mom. So my Aunt Georgia was the person who I moved with to Hunters Point. So I lived with my Aunt Georgia and my cousin until from 4 to 9 years old. And then I went back to Southern California for about a year, came back here. And at that time, then I lived with my grandparents, James and Thelma Briscoe, from 11 to 13. And so what it was like, so it was I didn't feel separated from anyone. So the school, all the gifted children came to Burnett Elementary because that's where it was. So in my class, there were Asian, Filipino. I remember a brother and sister. I loved their accents, but as a kid, I didn't know how to say that, so I teased them about it. But they had British accent and British mannerisms, and there were other students from the neighborhood. There were other students that were not from the neighborhood. So everyone, all of the people, I guess, whatever territory that covered for the gifted program that was in BayView, there were so many different people that came. So it was very diverse. So I would have a classroom setting full of diverse people, children with diverse backgrounds, and because the class was mixed, it was 4th, 5th, and 6th, then we had different levels. So what I didn't like about it is I didn't, not so much the program, but that, so we all played together. So we all were socializing together when everyone went to recess. But what I didn't like about it, being raised by grandparents and then being in a gifted program, it really wasn't the gifted program, but there were other things that I was invited to participate in, like Summer Bridge, which we were part of their inaugural class when they started. But my grandfather would make it a point. He was retired early with a heart condition and on a fixed income, but he always stressed to me that, you know, your education is important. Baby, get your education. The rest will wait. It will be there for you. And, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. And so he would, if there was a program, if they wanted me to attend it, if finances were an issue, he had no problems talking to the organizers and just letting them know that my grandparents were my guardians and that, you know, he needed me to participate in the program and whether or not there was a scholarship. So I just got carte blanche into everything. But I didn't like the story. I thought, you know, okay, I'll do the program, but I didn't like the story. I see now, you know, having grown up and being more responsible for my own finances of education, that you need to get all that you can. Get the grant, the scholarship, the loan, the whatever, the fellowship. So I appreciate that. But that was the one thing. It's almost like you have parents, you have guardians, but they have no idea what goes on in your life. And this is for regular parents. It's like you have no idea what happens in the life of a child in a day because you're at school and you just don't know the interactions that happen. Yes.
And
okay. So my role in Hunters Point as an adult. Let me backtrack a little bit. One thing I just have to give you the kernel of what the soul of this community is, and that is music, people, art. Everyone says good morning, how are you? I remember my former husband would say, do you know that person? Because of the way we talk to one another, and I didn't. and it was okay. But that's what Black people do. We see each other. We see other people. We say hello. So one of the things that was a tradition was Soul Train. Every Saturday at about noon, you had to be in front of that TV ready to watch Soul Train, and it was just fabulous. It was all these musicians, these dancers, and I thought that was wonderful. And so my grandparents were, they loved entertainment and laughing, and so we'd get awakened and in the evenings, and we could come, and that's the only time we could be in the presence of the adults. They'd say, come on and dance for us, and we'd dance. I think I would do the Funky Pig one at one time. But at any rate, I tell you that because I love dancing, I love art, I love shows, I devoured books. And so I went far away and back again through many stories. And so the library was just an oasis for me. So I thought that I started at Woodrow Wilson High School when it was called that. I went there the first semester, and then after that, I moved to Southern California. I went to Van Nuys High School Performing Arts Magnet because I thought I was going to be a professional actor, dancer, you name it. I did that program, and my godmother, bless her heart and rest her soul, Evelyn Shelton, also known as Auntie by most folks, I tell you, I lived in many households. I lived in her household with my god sister, Janine, for the remainder of junior high in Southern California and high school. And so I was doing pretty good, went to the drama festival, was a finalist, and was getting acting parts in high school, but she would not let me go. She was just so afraid. And she said to me one day, you know, you're going to be singing and dancing in the unemployment line. And so that was enough to scare me straight or scare me to business. I said, well, I can't be unemployed. I may sing and dance, but you know, I learned later you can sing and dance in the unemployment line, whether that's your profession or not. So I ended up switching to the math science program. Luckily, not luckily, I'll say that's God. The school had that same program. So that's what I did. I went to, I decided I was going to be an engineer because I like math and I like money. So that was the obvious choice. So I, made the decision to go to Cal State Fresno. They had an excellent engineering program, but they were also equal distance between Northern California and Southern California, so my family members wouldn't feel slighted. And I majored in engineering. I came back to BayView after that first year of college, expecting my son, Miles, who's a wonderful young man in his own right, who attended Rhode Island School of Design for green architecture and is just a little more than a semester, less than a year away from his degree, and I'm holding him to it even if he's gray, that he needs to finish it. But I did a complete evolution. I went from engineering, and when I went back to school, and that's the time that I came back here, so that was a big period. I was 18, I was going to be a mom, and so that's early. I won't even say adulthood, but when you become a parent, you get bits and pieces of that. So that was the earliest part of it. And I came here, I worked with Security Pacific National Bank for a number of years until I realized that I could go back to school and full time. I went to City College of San Francisco at night for a whole year and had completed a semester's worth of studies. When I went to UC Santa Barbara, my son and I, that's where I evolved. I went from undeclared, computer science, math. It's hard to switch from math or technical area to English or creative writing, all the things that I was great at. So my compromise was international relations, political science, international relations. So I never thought I would ever want to practice law, but guess what my profession is today? I'm an attorney, or as I like to say, I'm a businesswoman with a law degree. And that came about because when I got out of school, college, I thought I'm just going to take a job at whatever corporation and work my way up. I'll be a management trainee person. But it was 91, and we had the savings and loan crisis, and people that had master's degrees with 15 years experience were taking those entry-level jobs, and so that left me, you know, back at the bank. Thank goodness for that training. But I came back. So it was at the bank that I found out that, oh, I can help people. I was trying to help seniors that were living off their interest invest in something safe that wouldn't put their finances at risk. And then I learned that an attorney wasn't just someone who read big books with small print in dreary rooms in towns with not so good weather. So I had a completely different idea of what an attorney was. So when I figured out, oh, you can really help people, I said, okay, either master's in business administration or a law degree. And I thought I'd do both, but I opted for one. And when I came back to San Francisco to live continuously, I had been practicing law in Cote d'Ivoire. I'd worked with Ernst & Young International, and then I headed the international practice for a local Ivorian law firm. So when I came back to the U.S., I thought I was only going to be here for a temporary period. I had an opportunity to work with the San Francisco Housing Development Corporation in 2003. I was their housing counseling director for 3 years, so I thought, this is just excellent. I get to come back to my own self-community, my village, so to speak, and I get to help people prepare to become homeowners. And I get paid for it. How good is that? And so that's what I did. So, and I have an appreciation for money, how to stretch a dollar. And so that was something that I did. And but before I did that work, I noticed that in this community, there were a lot of houses that were being sold as probate sales. And in law school, I loved wills and trust, but it was an older white male profession. And I was the opposite of all that. I have a little gray now, so so I said, okay, those people have services. They don't need my help right now. And I'd have to convince them that I was old enough and that I knew what I was talking about. And I was much more interested in the international law. So that's what I did. But when I came back to BayView and saw those properties set up for sale, I would be at SFHDC. I'd do counseling appointments in the evening for clients. And then we'd have Saturday workshops. But then on my lunch break, sometimes I'd work with some of the senior organizations in BayView, District Advisory Council. Some of them are not here anymore. They were umbrella organizations for all the, like BayView Resource Center and so forth. And I do workshops about the benefits of an estate plan and what each document is good for, what it helps you to do or to avoid. And whatever the obstacle was, I just kept trying to craft a way to get people to act. Because I feel people will act if they have information. So I thought, it's my intellectual property. I can share it with whom I wish. I'm going to target this community. I help everyone, but when people are underserved, you really have to reach out to them. And I felt like I'm Black, so are my people, and I will help my people, and I'm happy to do it, and it's my pleasure and it's my honor. I feel that way today. Any people, but certainly my people. So that's what I did. And I went from SFHDC, San Francisco Housing Development Corporation, into just private practice. People were needing my services for probate, trust and estate planning, and we were having some issues about the restrictions on the affordable housing that started in 2003. That was being promoted by the redevelopment agency at the time. And I thought, more people are dying without trust than there are people that are going to run up against these resale restrictions that come up at year 45. So that's where I tilted all my efforts. I sent letters out to all the churches, telling them about what I did and offering to do free workshops for them. And then I got invitations to come and speak, and I just went where wherever I was invited. So churches here in the BayView, in the East Bay, I've gone as far as Fairfield, Stockton, and wherever you want to hear the information, I'm certainly there to share it with you. I did a workshop series at the police department on Williams in the community room, and then also at the Linda Brooks Burton BayView Library branch as well. And that was my way, still is, of just sharing the knowledge that I have been blessed to acquire and to try and use it to benefit and uplift the people in my community.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
What is your take on the current state of Hunters Point and where you perceive that it is going in the future?
Okay. Well, here are some of the stark realities that we live with. When you are in a community, and I travel in all the communities, you have certain expectation for services, and sometimes those expectations are met. What I notice since I've been back, so this BayView that has gone through the things that were happening when I was a child, and in the time when I left, the whole crack epidemic and the aftermath of that, this BayView, and then also the light rail. So when I came back, the light rail was still being built, and some of the smaller businesses that are along the 3rd Street corridor, they really suffered because there was no parking. Even now, it's challenging to find parking, and so those businesses suffered. If you can't get out your car, you can't patronize them. And the light rail, when it was completed, the people that they thought would flock to the businesses off the light rail just weren't there. And so what I see a lot of improvements happening. For instance, I do what's called the Hunters Point Hallelujah Hike. I listen to gospel to help me get up all those hills, and I try to mount as many as I can to just, increase the workout. But I'm always in awe of how beautiful it is. Every place, just everything is beautiful, and the view and the people. And I just, I noticed that now, or what I've seen, like Sundial Park. I played in that park. It was so dangerous. You slide down the slide, your legs are skinned. We had to put a cardboard box or the part of it to sit on so that when you slid down the cement slide, it did not skin your legs. And so that, I'm a seasoned person, so that's been there a while. So I notice now that there is a new park there, and it, it's safer. The sand is gone because you can't really control what's in the sand, and if it's safe, and the structures are there and available for children to play. But there have been children for decades that have needed to play, but it's only in the last 10 years, and I'll say 5, that those improvements have come about. And I will say that when I say we have realities, certain realities that we live with, and that's because more people, I would say more non-black people, I'll say more white people, because I attribute the influx of people to the area because they say, oh wow, it is beautiful. People say good morning, and there are trees, and I like that as more people other than the original folks that were living here and original during my lifetime in the last 50 years, that's when the improvements have started. And I know that there's probably an economical factor tied to that, but I see that happening. So I like people who love family and love life and living, so people are welcome, and the more the merrier. And but what I don't like is that, and I'll just say, let me say this: BayView represents an example of what's to come for other people. And I'll just borrow that. I apply the analogy that Lonnie Guinier used, and when she co-authored a book, I had a chance to see her. I have a great friend, Dr. Kimberly Mayfield Lynch. She laughs because she has people in BayView, but she says she loves Oakland as much as I love BayView, and vice versa. So we each love our communities. But I attended an event with her, and Lonnie Guinier said that in their book they talk about the miner's canary, and that the miner's canary is, for the miner, it has a fragile respiratory system, and if there's any problem with the atmosphere, then the canary will be the first one to show signs, and that will then alert the miners that they need to get out or do something, that the conditions are dangerous, they need to be changed. And she said that people of color represent the miner's canary in society, in that things don't happen to us because of our color or our ethnicity, but that we are more sensitive to the changes, and whatever is going to befall the rest will happen to us first, will hit us hardest. And it's ironic that here in BayView in 1988, they're going to be celebrating, SFHDC is going to be celebrating its 30-year anniversary this year, and that's the organization that was created to try to stop the outflow of African American people from this community because it was difficult in 1988. Well, in 2008, it was difficult for everyone, or some people. It was creeping up. So low income, low to moderate income. Now, you have six-figure plus. I think depending on the area median income and the size of your family, you could be making $120,000 or $140,000 or more. Some of the targeted incomes for the places being built, you would think that that would not be an income that would require assistance, but it does. And so whatever is happening in BayView or to people of color, it's an early indication for the rest of the folks that it's soon to happen to you as well, unless you do something about it. And so we can, look at where we are today, look at our political system. Some of the things that only people of color suffered the most, now that's become widespread, which leads to the discontentment of the majority of the society as a whole. And so all the excuses that have been used, race, ethnicity, whatever you could use to oppress or to do less than you should, those are falling by the wayside because people are learning that it is applicable to everyone.
Thank you. Okay, let me shut down for a minute. On this one.
I forgot the question.
I think you answered.
Okay.
Okay, so now, this is your wrap up.
Okay,
This is your wrap up. So whatever you could say to, put the icing on the cake, put the cherry on top, put the ice cream on the side with it, So whatever that might be, just go ahead and speak your truth.
okay. BayView is a beautiful community. I grew up here. I have been all around the world. I've lived in other cultures, other places, different people, and had different professions, and everything that I learned here in BayView was enough to make me successful in all those places. So respecting your elders, caring about your neighbors, so all the things that are part of, I'll say, we call it African American culture because we think that's just what we do. We know that's what we do. We're not always sure how other communities may differ. Love the Lord was and is a big part of our culture. And I would say for BayView is a wonderful place. People are going to discover it, but it's a wonderful place because of where it is and because of who's in it. And we have this big shipyard project, and I love that you're talking about art. I make it a point to go and see the artist open studios all the time, and I tease people and say, if there was a sign that said "We'll work for art," I should definitely have it, because that's where all my assets and resources would go. And so when the project was presented to the residents of BayView, Hunters Point, we were told that shipyard would be developed. There would be spaces for the artists, that the developments in the community would be Afrocentric to represent the residents, all of the residents. We love color. Look at the buildings, look at the murals. I had someone from Dr. Deanna Ziegler came here. She was speaking because she was voted one of the 50 most important people in technology, and I took her around, and every time I had to stop at every corner, things that I just took for granted, because right on Palouse, the murals that were on the buildings, and she's like, these are just incredible. Walgreens, all up and down the street, things at Martin Luther King Jr. Park. So pool, but I call it the park at any rate. It's a beautiful place, and it's the people that make it beautiful. And I want, going forward, for all those things that were promised to come about, make them happen. The money, the resources are there. This is the last space that can really be revitalized or developed in San Francisco. And when one person gains, I think we all gain. When we do well, one group does well, we can all do well. And for BayView, San Francisco, people are leaving, and I ride an Uber, I ride public transportation, and I hear people talking, and they're just saying, you know, this San Francisco is not what we know it to be. And I think if we will just invest in people, in our human capital, in businesses, that life is so much richer when you have flavor, lots of flavor. So all the people that are in BayView, it's one of the most diverse communities. I don't know what nationality isn't here, and so we want to value all of the people. And I would just say that consider this your village, your global village. In Côte d'Ivoire, one person taught me, no matter how successful you are, you always go back to your village and you do something for your village. And so that's why I adopted BayView as my village, so to speak. So I want people to think of BayView as their village, all the people that are coming, and I want them to invest in this place, their family. We can all enjoy it. We can walk on the streets. We can converse with one another. There does need to be something done about the lack of mental health facilities and substance abuse issues. So now that other people that are non-Black people have suffered or are suffering from substance abuse issues, now we look at it as a sickness, and we're trying to decriminalize it. What's unfortunate is that so many Black people have been criminalized for it. I experienced that with my mother firsthand. So I used to say, when I read the Bible and, you know, it'd say something about love, or you answer this way, I'd say, God, you know, you need an edge. I don't think people are going to really take to that. I don't know if that's going to really do the trick. And sometimes some answers sound so frou-frou, if you're not familiar with that term, but it just sounds so too soft. But I have to tell you, as I have seen things happen and, you know, lived through some civil wars, basically, and we just have to love each other more. And for BayView and for everywhere else, I want BayView to be a model community for a green community. We have the ability to take all that's been done and implement it now, and move that much further. But we just have to love one another more, and we just have to make sure that we are treating one another as we would like to be treated. And the people that you love, you just really can't hurt them. No matter what they do, you have forgiveness for them. So whenever you come across that person that gets on your nerves, this is a lesson from Reverend E. at the East Bay Church of Religious Science. When I'd come home, I'd go wherever, church with whatever friend. And so I remember she gave us this exercise to do, that we think that loving one another is optional, and it is not. God said we are to love one another. So she said, there are people that get on your last nerve. You cannot even stand them too long. As my grandfather would say, a little bit of your gravy runs all over my plate. So, so she told us, and you have people in your life, you just love them, they can do no wrong. She said, okay, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about that person that gets on your last nerve. We thought about that. She said, now I want you to think about that person that you love and can do no wrong. We focused on that person. She said, now I want you to take the love that you have for that person. I want you to transfer it over to the person that gets on your last nerve. And then light bulbs went off. It's like, oh, is that how you practice that? So I try to do that all the time. So I want people to do that not only in BayView, for BayView, with BayView, but in life in general. And I think that'll start peeling away a lot of the issues that we're dealing with right now. Thank you.
Thank you.